Hey there, I'm Sarah Zarella, a portrait and wedding photographer and your host for Wedding Secrets Unveiled. This is a podcast where we cut through the complexity of wedding planning, leaving you with everything you need to know directly from the industry experts. If you want to simplify your wedding planning while having fun, of course, you came to the right place. Join me while I guide you through your planning, starting from your engagement to your big day when you say, I do. After photographing for over 20 years, I am sharing with you tips and tricks to cut through the excess noise. Because I believe from the moment you said yes, your planning experience should be a magical time in your life. Here you'll find episodes that are fun, stress-free, and straight to the point with a fresh, honest take on the reality of what you really need to know about planning your perfect day. Let's dive in. Well, welcome back to Wedding Secrets Unveiled podcast, friends. I'm your host, Sarah Zarella, and today we'll be talking with Caite Kenyon. She is the catering sales manager of the property, the Chanler at the Cliff Walk. But Caite has specialized in her entire event career in boutique properties and hotels. So if you're wondering what that is, or if you're thinking about that is going to be perfect for you in planning your wedding, or if you even want to know what a buyout option is, this is definitely the podcast for you. So we're going to break it down. We're going to talk about the pros and the cons, the restrictions, but also the creativity that can happen when you are having a buyout at a boutique property. So if you are thinking about having a buyout or getting married at a very unique property, this is the podcast episode for you. Well, welcome back to Wedding Secrets Unveiled podcast, friends. I'm your host, Sarah Zarella, and today we are with a special guest. Hello.
Hi, Sarah.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. I am excited, Caite, to have you on the show because not only are you a fellow vendor, but you're a friend. So you are a friender.
I am a friender.
I love it. But with that said, so it's funny. So for our listeners, Caite and I, we try to do lunches maybe every 6 weeks or so. And we talk shop, and here we are on air talking shop, right?
Exactly. You can't help when you are with your frienders to talk a little bit of shop. And it's usually when you are able to talk about all of the fun things that are going on, but also all of the challenges.
Yes. So, but with that said, let's let our listeners know a little bit about who you are, what you do, and who do you serve.
So my name is Caite Kenyon. I currently work at a beautiful boutique hotel called the Chanler at Cliff Walk, and I am a venue coordinator.
Right. And what's interesting about the word boutique is there's not a lot out there, right? Well, there is, but there's not. So it's very unique. So tell our listeners a little bit about what we mean when we say a boutique venue or hotel.
Good question. So, when we talk about boutique hotels, we are not talking about hotels that are usually part of hotel chains. We're not talking about large properties either. We're often talking about properties that function almost like a bed and breakfast, but full service. So, they usually have smaller amounts of rooms, 20 to maybe 40 maximum, and serve as full restaurants as well, and really become a smaller property than what you see for some of the larger ones.
And this is kind of your expertise because you've worked at multiple properties that have kind of the same theme, like that very unique, smaller, intimate boutique venue, basically. Well, I don't want to use the word venue because it's not.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've worked at boutique hotels all along the coast of New England, starting up in Maine, down to Kennebunkport, often on the islands in the areas, and now in Newport. So a lot of boutique hotels along the coast for me personally.
All right. So let's just get right into it. Tell us a little bit about boutique hotels and why they offer the full weekend experience, what that is, and then the phrase buyout. What does that mean for our listeners?
Absolutely. So boutique hotels often find that they are not large enough to host properly a large wedding event and at the same time be hosting other guests. They don't find that it meshes well, and they want everybody's experience at their property to be one that is excellent. So, a lot of boutique hotels offer what we call in the industry a buyout, which means that for your wedding, often weekend, because boutique hotels often have a 2 night minimum, you would come in and contract and take over the property with all of their guest rooms for your wedding weekend. This allows them to close to the public and often transform their different spaces, their restaurants, their lobbies, into wedding venue spaces for you. A lot of boutique hotels do not have large ballroom spaces or outdoor tent setup. So they really rely on bringing in these elements to the property in order to create your wedding weekend.
And also, too, that really allows some creativity factor, which we'll talk a little bit about. And ultimately, really, it could turn into not just your wedding, it could turn into your wedding weekend, and you can have all of your events there.
Absolutely. I think that boutique hotels and the concept of the buyout is really meant for people who are planning destination weddings. It's really about people coming into whatever beautiful town, city, island, whatever you're looking for, coming in for the weekend event, traveling. And what's so lovely about this buyout boutique experience is after all of those travels, they're able to come to the hotel, settle in, and really feel the experience of being surrounded by their closest friends and family. So I do find that boutique hotels and those buyout experiences are the ideal property for destination weddings.
Absolutely. And you also don't feel like a number because at the end of the day, you are isolated in a good way with your friends and family and the most important people.
Absolutely. And most boutique hotels are not going to be hosting many weddings in their season because they have to function as a hotel the rest of the time. If they closed every weekend for a wedding, they would never be the hotel and restaurant that they typically are. So, a lot of boutique hotels, it's kind of an exclusive experience, and you'll find that they have limited dates available.
Which is a really good point. So one day when we went and got lunch together, you brought something up, just casually speaking. And but for me, I was like, I listened. I'm like, ooh, that's something I never thought about. Is that you? There's so many things just that you can do that's unique for your couples because, and we'll get into that, right? But because they are doing a buyout or a rent out, and basically they have the hotel is their oyster, right? But at the end of the day, like you said, that most of these boutique facilities function as something else. So whether it be a hotel or whether it be a restaurant. So after your weekend and your buyout's over, they have to go and transition back into what their main purpose is, right? So
Correct.
there are some restrictions that we could talk about too with that, or some guidelines that you also have to take in consideration when you're doing that. But before we get into that, let's talk about the creativity aspect and all of the fun things that you can do, Kate, as the sales manager that not a lot of other places can because of the buyout.
Absolutely. What I love about boutique hotels and why I have really honed in on that in my career is the ability for creativity and the ability for flexibility. When you're at a boutique hotel and you have taken over this property for the weekend, the restrictions of can I be here? Can I do this? Can I set up this? Is a little bit more flexible because that hotel does not have to also take into consideration the guest experience of those who are traveling. So, for some of most boutique hotels, as I mentioned, they don't have what you would consider a dedicated event space. It allows them to use beautiful lawns or inside areas, clear them out into a blank canvas, and really allow them to transform into what couple's vision is. And the flexibility of having that full weekend and not being restricted to certain hours also allows your vendors to come in and really be able to be creative and not feel like they're on a time crunch. because boutique hotels only host so many a year, I've always found that everyone every season tends to be unique. I never seem to see the same thing over and over again. And it really just allows to have this beautiful season of creativity with a lot of different couples.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the first thing that comes to mind when I think about a wedding that I've seen that you have been part of. It's every wedding that I've been at and I've worked at or I've seen pictures of. They're very unique and it's very interesting what you do with the space. So kind of walk us through there. I would assume a lot of venues, they have their space and yes, they have their different types of floor plans, but at the end of the day, this is your space, this is your room. But let's take, for example, the Chanler, right? There is a lot of pockets and rooms and areas that you can use and basically be creative of what your couples do. So take us through that process. If they walk in and they're going to do a buyout and they're going to take that space and want to transition it to theirs. What are some things that you can do for these couples because you don't have such limited restrictions?
Right. Well, one of the things is allowing spaces to be cleared out of what they originally are. So, take the Chandler, for example. It has a stunning terrace restaurant with beautiful views and open air, typically set as you would expect a restaurant with tables of 4 or 6. You clear that space out, and all of a sudden, you have 1,400 square feet of gorgeous stone floors and beautiful views to set up in a variety of different ways. And that space can be utilized over the weekend for different things. It doesn't have to be redundant. So, if you were to host your rehearsal dinner Friday night and set it with long tables and beautiful florals and dark purples and greens, the next day that space can be transformed into a cocktail hour area or your after party lounge that all of a sudden brings in disco balls and dark colors. And so these spaces can be flipped and turned into different areas. The Chandler itself has a really beautiful large lawn, and that lawn is perfect for tented receptions. But it being a blank canvas, people have all different ideas of what they want that to look like. Some people want a beautiful white sailcloth tent. Some people want to get creative and do something different. So these blank spaces allow you to be creative.
And what's interesting too is a lot of these spaces, when you go there for what it's functioning as on a normal day. So let's just take the Chandler. It's a hotel and a restaurant. When you go there then as the wedding, it's so different. It's basically like you said, it's a blank canvas. What we think of a tent, like obviously everybody listening knows about a tented wedding, right? It's a blank
Right.
space, you can decorate it, fine. But what about the entire venue to be your blank canvas?
Absolutely. You go in, let's say you're here for your initial site tour, and we are set up as the hotel we always are. You have to start to come in and envision spaces with things removed. So if you're headed into the indoor restaurant spaces or the indoor bar, you start to have to envision what possibilities are there. So often those spaces will remove all of that decor and open up into what you're looking for. And you really do utilize all of the different areas. You can use the lobby for some sort of beautiful welcome party setup. You can use intimate restaurant areas for small rehearsal dinners the night before. So when you come to the property, you have to start to use your imagination. Now, luckily, most venue coordinators for boutique hotels will give you a site tour with an iPad and some photos because everybody needs a little bit of help with visualization.
Absolutely. And that's the thing that's so unique and extraordinary that you do because it really is hard for someone to walk into your space and be like, but we can do this without showing them, right? Uh,
100%.
Now, the other thing is, though, too, a lot of times when we're talking about boutique buyouts, we're talking about hotel rooms. So you also have the convenience of staying on property and being in one place. And that in itself is a whole other, I mean, for lack of better terms, I just said it, convenient factor.
You nailed it right on the head because you all of a sudden have this beautiful base where your closest friends and family are surrounding you. And unlike another hotel experience, you can open up doors, you can go in and out of rooms, you can really make it feel almost like a private estate with a wonderful staff there to take care of you, your friends, and again, closest family.
I mean, that's ultimately what it is. It turns into your private estate. And you could sit there and you can have a bonfire. You could sit out and on the lawn, and you don't have someone saying time to leave. Your rental's over now. But however, let's get into that though. There is some restrictions, and there is a time to leave. So
Yes.
there is a time you have to check out.
Right.
So
A lot of boutique hotels definitely have some restrictions that you have to work around. So that's when you have to decide if that's the right property for you. One of those restrictions is when it's time to leave, it's time to leave, because the hotel now has to be put back together into exactly what it looked like before you arrived. The restaurant has to reopen, the guest rooms have to be able to be checked into. So there is a limit as to, what you can do on that last day, and having to transform back into what it's supposed to be.
can you take us, just a little bit unveiling behind the scenes a little bit about, in particular, your property, the Chanler? What do you do with all that furniture that's in your lobby or in your dining room? You come and you want to sit and have a beautiful, meal, but then you're also there now another day for a celebration, and all of a sudden everything's gone. Where does that all go?
Well, what's really interesting is that the staff for a boutique hotel now turns into a giant event staff. So the hotel engineer all of a sudden becomes the moving guys. And all of that furniture goes on a truck and it goes away for the weekend, not to be brought back until Sunday. So it's quite a feat to be able to take that out quickly, to be able to transfer over from what you were originally doing on Friday and being able to bring it back on Sunday. But it's really becomes a full team effort when there's a boutique hotel buyout, because everybody there for the staff all of a sudden is there for your particular wedding weekend. And sometimes their roles change a little bit.
I'm sorry, but that is just so kind of cool. I'm just, literally, you are taking a facility and they are transforming it into yours for the time that you have it. And so cool. Like literally, like you said, like you're taking furniture out.
Right.
It's going. It's coming back in though, but it's going,
It's going and it's coming back in, and in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
It's really a quick flip of the space because the hotel does want to get back to what it is usually doing and reopen just as you're leaving back to its guest rooms and restaurant.
What are some restrictions that you do see when you are dealing with boutique properties?
Well, some restrictions with boutique hotels fall around certain entertainment licenses, things like that. You're often dealing with indoor and outdoor spaces because boutique hotels are not particularly large. So you're often dealing, again, indoor and outdoor. Sometimes boutique hotels are closer to residential areas. So you have to be aware, and your venue coordinator has to be very upfront about restrictions with noise ordinances or what can and cannot be removed from a hotel. Some things are permanent. Same with your cuisine day of. Often these chefs are happy to start to get creative and really cater to your group. It is not a typical wedding venue when you're at a boutique hotel. Your cuisine, your chef is often somebody that you would see in a restaurant. So you will have a lot of quality there that's surprising for your guests. But you do have to listen to the hotel and really take in any restrictions that they have that might affect the way that you want your day to flow. That being said, boutique hotels know their own restrictions, and so they often have a great plan in place to put together a wonderful wedding day. And often it requires a lot of different flow for the day, which can be a lot of fun for guests.
Absolutely. And like you said, very unique. But at the end, there is certain restrictions because ultimately you aren't dealing with, for lack of better terms, a machine, a wedding venue.
Right.
So, there are going to be certain restrictions, but most of these, I would assume all of the properties, your restrictions and you have the answers. So if you
Correct.
are somebody who's listening to this and really wants a unique experience, some of the questions you do need to be asking are what the restrictions are and listening to the answers, because the answers are sometimes some really awesome solutions.
Exactly. People often want to know about weather backups. That's a big one that everybody wants to understand, especially when they're on a small property. But the creativity and the flexibility of the property often allows for really good inclement weather backup situations. In particular, the Chandler, for instance, that beautiful terrace can be transformed into a backup ceremony location and then repurposed again as your guests are
Mm-hmm.
eating dinner to come in for cocktail hour. But a lot of hotels that are boutique hotels might have restrictions on how late a bar can go or when food service can begin based on how their kitchen has functioned when they are actually a hotel open for guests. So you do have to listen, but venue coordinators often will know the workarounds to make the flow of your day what you're looking for.
Absolutely. Well, what we're going to do, Kate, is we're going to take a quick break. And then when we get back, let's talk a little bit about actually Newport as a canvas. Because also, too, when you have a buyout, you have people coming in for the weekend. So you have the location is very important. And then we talk about a little bit about vendors, too, and the role of these boutique places. I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you like what you're hearing, I encourage you to check out our website at sarahzarella.com. And don't forget, you can actually subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. And I would so appreciate if you left a fabulous review on Apple Podcast. Even better, share it with a friend. It's a great way to show your support. And now, let's get back to the episode. Welcome back to Wedding Secrets Unveiled. So before the break, Kate and I were talking a little bit about unique boutique properties, right? And we talked a little bit, not a little, we talked a lot about why it's unique and it being a blank canvas, and also, too, the restrictions and some solutions. But I think also, too, one of the things that we were talking about in the beginning, Kate, that we should circle back around to is you mentioned that boutique properties really lend itself to destination weddings. Not all of them are destination, but a lot of them, because you're coming in and you have a place to stay and you have basically the facility to be your, what's the lack of better terms, like your, I don't know.
Home away from home.
Home, exactly, right? So I think where you're going and the location of the boutique properties do come in effect of making sure that it's an extra bonus when you have a place like, in your situation, Newport. That is a huge bonus.
Absolutely. Honestly, destination weddings are perfect for boutique hotels because it allows for a full weekend experience. Often, couples that are looking into boutique hotels are looking for a place that is not in a hometown, not close by, but somewhere where guests from traveling all over the country or all over the world are going to come and enjoy being in that particular city or place, and giving them that experience. So let's take Newport, for example. People will love to come to travel to Newport. It is a beautiful coastal town, plenty of restaurants, gorgeous mansions, lots of things to do, lots of walking, being able to walk from place to place, to not worry about transportation, and to experience quintessential Rhode Island and this little state that a lot of people tend to overlook at times. So part of being a destination wedding is making sure that where you're bringing your guests, they'll have plenty to do outside of just attending your events for the weekend.
Truly, for our listeners who are not local and you are, nationwide, you really, if you haven't came to Newport, you really need to. And for truly, and like for those people who are local, you're right. A lot of us overlook what what gem we have here in this small state of ours.
With the beaches, the mansions, all of the amazing restaurants that people often don't even know are in Newport, people will always find something to do. Being on the water is something that sometimes, as a native Rhode Islander, I have taken for granted. But being on the water and an oceanfront property is something that not everybody has experienced.
No. And if you are one of the fortunate, lucky ones to get married at a boutique property and have a buyout, which is a small group of people because not everybody has the opportunity to have this, you are so lucky. And especially if you are doing it in a location like Newport, you are providing just right there, right? Just having a buyout, just having a private boutique property and having it in Newport, you are providing right there such an amazing experience for your guests and what you're hosting that like you've already started on top. Like there's nowhere else
Absolutely.
to go other than higher up, you know? Like, yeah.
You want your guests to turn your wedding weekend into their vacation.
Yes.
You want them to look at that wedding date, look at somewhere like Newport and say, we are coming in on Wednesday and we are not leaving until Tuesday because there are a million things to do, beaches to spend time at, and we actually want this to be a getaway for ourselves. And that really turns your guest experience into one where they are coming to have a good time.
Yes, and someone like yourself who, like you said, you don't do weddings every single weekend. You can really help your couples, and a lot, I'm sure, boutique properties do the same thing. I mean, you've worked at quite a few, and you said that they all kind of run the same way, where you can really help your couples. You can go over the area and direct them to something that they're thinking about doing, you know, for their guests or letting their guests know of things to do in the area.
Absolutely. Anything from having a small welcome event on, a schooner and letting people get the experience of sailing or being able to hand out tickets and have them see some of these historic mansions that people haven't seen before. You can really curate a vacation for them and really give them a lot of different options for things to do that are outside, again, of your wedding events.
So talk to me now a little bit about going back to the property, right? And boutique hotels or properties. Talk to me a little bit about working in a smaller venue or the catering team and taking on honestly such a big production now, because now at this point you're lending yourself to have large amounts of people to come into your facility for a long period of time.
Absolutely. You said the right word. It is a production. As a venue coordinator, I feel like I then turn into a production manager where you have to think about all of the different steps from start to finish as to how we're actually going to create your wedding vision. And a huge part of that is working with the right vendors.
Mm-hmm.
That's key to be able to bring in vendors who know your property and its restrictions in and out. So I often find that bringing in vendors who are interested in the property, who are people who have been there before, but also like to collaborate with the other vendors as a team. I find that if vendors know each other and they come to the property, then it becomes a really great team experience.
Right. And once again, you're providing that boutique experience because not only do you have a beautiful property, a beautiful location, but now you got a team that's seamless. So like literally as soon as your couples check in, it's their vacation too. It's their celebration. They can just worry about getting married, right? And so
Right.
people can feel that. I mean, it's interesting. When we went out to lunch one of these times that we've done, you said something again. I'm like, okay, you're just talking and you take it for granted what you're saying, or maybe you don't, but it's like these little nuggets that I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about that. If you really need to ask also too, if you are planning a wedding, and I'm sure if you have someone like Kate who is helping you, they'll already tell you these things, but there are certain requirements that these spaces need. For example, they need to function after you check out back to what they originally do, whether it be a restaurant or hotel. So you really need to clear everything that was produced for your production and your celebration needs to go. so,
Correct.
right.
Yes.
So you said something to me that really resonated. You said, one of the reasons why you want the same type of people coming to property to understand is they know when they go to the Chanler, like that florist has to come and get their vases and get all their stuff that night, not the next day.
Right. Right, exactly. And that's why vendors that tend to enjoy working at boutique hotels, they enjoy all of the flexibility, they enjoy the creativity, but they also are aware and really respectful of the timelines that need to happen. So just like you said, Sarah, florists may have to come back at 1 a.m. and start to take their florals and vases away as I don't have space for them on Sunday when we transform. Or let's say that a tent has gone up for your event. They may be back first thing at 9 a.m. to take that down so that by 1 o'clock p.m. that lawn is open for wine and drinks for guests that are here to come to the hotel or restaurant. So working with the right vendors who are okay with these timelines is really key.
And also, too, this goes back down to what you said earlier. When you do a site tour, having that iPad or the albums or the pictures is really important because at the end of the day, if you're one of the lucky ones that get to get married at a boutique property, you literally walk in and you see it one way, and then it's totally different for your way. But remember, it has to go back.
It does. It has to go back. And, some of those restrictions can be talked about right in those first site tours because I often say square peg, round hole. Even if you love a property, if they are starting to tell you that some of the things that you are dreaming of can't happen, then don't force it because those restrictions won't change. And but we're very aware of what we can and cannot do, and that's what's really lovely about boutique hotels as well, as they do understand what is possible and what is not, and they'll be very upfront with you.
I also do find, though, that most boutique properties actually have less restrictions, believe it or not, because yes, you have your certain things that you need to happen, but ultimately at the end of the day, when you are there, I start to see some of the most creative and unique transitions of the space because you are lended. I mean, you ultimately are having, that's what it's called, a buyout. You are there.
Exactly.
You are there. That's your canvas.
You're right, Sarah. When we talk about restrictions, we're talking about maybe one or two
Right.
things. And those one or two things often are to also protect the property itself and what that property stands for. But those restrictions are always brought up right at the beginning. And then from there on out, your planning process becomes fun, flexible, creative. And again, having this property open to you, if your florals are going to be out of this world, over the top, and that florist needs to get here at 10 a.m. to get started, that's fine. They are not working around other guests' restrictions or things like that. So it is misleading to say that there are a lot of restrictions. Those are always brought up ahead of time. But once you get there, the flexibility is really, really what the boutique experience is about.
And honestly, no matter where you get married, there's always the non-negotiables. No matter where. It's
100%.
but I think what we forget, and I'm kind of going back down to that analogy of the blank tent, right? Because it's easy to conceptualize the blank tent that you can make it a masterpiece. It's the same thing with the property. This is your property. Transform it to how you want it to be done, and it's pretty magical, a buyout. I mean, like you said, you have everybody staying there. You have the facility. If you want multiple events to happen, whether it be a welcome reception or cocktail hour or your ceremony on site and also your reception on site, you can do it all in one location.
That's totally true. And honestly, I am a giant fan of a welcome party. A welcome party on Friday night. I will push it over and over and over again. You have just arrived at this gorgeous hotel. You're unpacked. You're feeling happy, excited for what's coming. and invite everybody staying in town over to this property where you and your friends are staying at to have some drinks, have some food. It doesn't mean it has to be a full evening event. From 8 to 10:30, just let them come over and say hi, because welcome parties to me are the perfect time to see all of those friends, guests, and family that you have not seen for months or even years. And it really takes a lot of stress off of you the next day, when really that day is supposed to be about you as a couple, not running around trying to say hello to every single guest. You've already done that.
Ooh, you know what? You just brought up a good point, because I was about to ask you the wrap-up question, but you brought up a great point. You know, one of the key things about doing a buyout or a wedding weekend is you actually get some great time with your guests.
Exactly.
The clock is not against you, it's for you.
Exactly. It really is to allow you to see people you haven't seen in a long time, but not feel rushed.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not rushing through a day. It's not high by. You're not trying, like I said, to see everybody. When your day, you should be able to focus on what you're there for. And that's you and your future husband or wife being together. So allowing the flexibility to spend the entire weekend together with your friends and family is truly something special.
All right, Kate. So I could talk to you all day, which, sometimes I do. With
Yeah.
that said, it's time for a wrap-up question. So before we get to our wrap-up question, though, tell us your wedding hot take.
Okay, put me on the spot. So, my wedding hot take, being a Rhode Island girl, Ocean State, is you have to have a raw bar. You can't get
Oh,
around it.
yes.
You need to do the raw bar. I don't care if it's at the welcome party. It don't care if it's at cocktail hour. People traveling to ocean venues need to try an oyster at least once.
Nailed it. Yes. I love that hot take. All right. So, our wrap-up question. What are some key points that couples should be asking their boutique property to make sure that they're inquiring for the perfect fit for their wedding day to make it an absolute seamless event?
One of the things that you should always ask during your site tour is what is included. What is included and what do you have to bring in? Is the tent already included in the package that they have quoted or provided to you? Are the tables and chairs? What do you need to rent outside of what that property is? Because boutique hotels are not set up with their own equipment. So oftentimes they are using companies to bring these items in. So they need to be really upfront, and you need to ask the question, what is included in the pricing that we've already spoken about?
Perfect. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this week's Wedding Secrets Unveiled. You helped our listeners become one step closer to a stress-free wedding planning journey. Can you tell everyone where they could find you?
You can find me on Instagram. My handle is Kate313. You can find me under Caite Kenyon, where you will find multiple photos and videos of all of the amazing weddings that we have hosted at boutique hotels in New England.
Absolutely. And for our listeners, I will have Kate's information on our episode show notes, which you can find on our blog and our website page, which is at sarahzarella.com/podcast. Thanks, Kate.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Wedding Secrets Unveiled. I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode, I want to tell you something. I encourage you to check out our website at sarahzarella.com. We love photographing while having fun, of course. Check out our podcast page on our website for our show notes, along with upcoming episodes with your local wedding experts. Listen in as we help you plan your epic event. And don't forget that you can actually subscribe to this podcast wherever you are listening so you never miss an episode. I would so appreciate if you left a review for us on Apple Podcasts. Even better, share it with a friend. It's a great way to show your support, and let us know what you think. If you know any wedding experts that would like to be a guest, we have a link directly on our website where they can let us know. Thank you for listening.